Friday night, September the 12th, in the Dome at 7 o'clock. With that, we welcome on our guy, one of the play-by-play voices of the Colgate Raiders, Eric Malinowski. Eric, always good to catch up. I imagine it must be beautiful down in the Hamilton area right now, as well as us sitting up here in the Q's.
Yeah, absolutely gorgeous, picturesque weather. Hopefully it's this nice come football season. Obviously, it doesn't matter when Colgate's in Syracuse, but for the home opener, Colgate-Monmouth, I think it's August 29th, Brian. So already looking forward to that.
All right, so, it's so interesting, right, in this current era of college athletics, Eric, right, where things feel like they're changing every 4 seconds. It's like quicksand. You don't know what's happening. Where do you sense Colgate's fitting in when you're hearing about revenue sharing, when you're hearing about, big settlements and NIL? Where is Colgate's role in all of this right now?
Yeah, I had a talk with the sports information director a couple days ago, Brian, and just talking about that. And it's obviously different for teams in the Patriot League and the Ivy League when it comes to the NIL, and that, they're not at the same kind of standard as the bigger schools. But the thing that the Colgates of the world and the Patriot League and the Ivy League schools has that academic excellence that student athletes will still come to play, where they might not get the major NIL money as they would at other schools, but the academic excellence is the deciding factor, and the kids that stay and the kids that still commit to schools like Colgate. So, it's definitely a challenging time, and I'm still trying to grasp all the movements going on. And, even before the NIL stuff, it was the transfer portal with COVID and the transfer portal. It's really hard to keep pace with the roster year after year. And I've, been listening to your show, Brian, and I know there's been many shows where you're like, okay, this player's gone for Syracuse, this player's in. It's a constant carousel.
Yeah, literally, we spend months, multiple of it, between football and basketball, talking about portal and portal watch and players moving all the time. And you're right, it is hard to get a grasp of who's on rosters these days. From a Colgate perspective here, when you look at this now with the rev share stuff, like you mentioned Colgate and the Ivies. All of those schools, they have a lot of money, right? There's a lot of money going around, and obviously the money in many ways is focused on academics. But if people wanted, right, they could easily donate some of that money to athletics to shell out to the players through this rev share. Do you sense that'll happen in any way, or is that not a priority? Like, you look at facilities, there have been plenty of great upgrades at Colgate recently. Now, if people wanted, they could donate straight to the players. I just don't know if that's a priority there.
Yeah, from what I've been told, and I'm not sure how the Lehigh and the Lafayette are doing things, the other schools in the Patriot League, but I was told that Colgate, their stance right now is that the funds are not coming from the school. Mm-hmm. They're just coming from alumni. They're setting that up where, I'm not sure the exact name of it, Brian, but they set up a fundraising effort to go to the basketball teams and to go to the football team. But you're right. Obviously, the Ivies and the Patriot League schools, they have some money in their pockets, but they are not, as far as I know, they are not supporting the NIL coffer, as you will.
Yeah, I like it. If Harvard tomorrow felt like having the richest basketball team of all time, they could do it. But,
yeah, right.
But realistically, that's just not what they're in the game for. So it's strange times, right, in college sports where you just don't know how it's going to go. And I saw this the other day, conference movements and affects the Colgate level as well. Villanova's joining the Patriot League for football now. That's quite a team with great recent success to add to the league.
That was a little bit of a shocker, and from what I've heard, and this isn't, confirmed, but from what I've heard, it's NIL related, where teams, because the CAA, the Colonial, and the FCS landscape, they're the dominant conference. Obviously, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, the Missouri Valley, or whatever their conference is called, they would have an argument, but Villanova's in the top 10 every year.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a shocker. And the way I look at it, Brian, you have Villanova, you have William and Mary, you have Richmond joining as just associate football members. Now, Boston University joined the Patriot League, had to be at least 10 years back now, as a full member. And when they joined, they were pretty dominant. They were dominant in basketball and some of the other sports as well. But give it some time, and it's watered down where now they're just another member of the Patriot League. Will that happen to Villanova? Will they water down, within 5 years? But right now, you look at Villanova, Richmond, William & Mary as a Colgate, you're kind of scratching your head. How are we ever going to compete for a Patriot League title? But hopefully the ebbs and flows, it comes back to earth and Villanova comes to us, or maybe we climb to Villanova standards.
Yeah, obviously, Nova's been a very good team. Syracuse should have lost to them back in the Scott Schaefer era with a extra point that was definitely good, and there doesn't need to be any further questioning of that now, a decade after the fact. As we have Eric Malinowski with us, we're talking Colgate. It's our 12 games in 12 weeks preview of the Orange football season. Raiders in the Dome on Friday, September 12th. And, last year, down here for Colgate, right? 2 wins. That's just not something you guys are used to around there. What happened last year, and is it something that they feel in a better position to avoid here this year?
Yeah, the main thing is after the 2-10 season a year ago, Brian, there was a coaching change made. So Kurt Fitzpatrick, who was the Division III Coach of the Year in 2023, leading Cortland to a national championship, he has taken over the reins here at Colgate. And I think the Raiders just kind of lost their way over the years, from after Dick Biddle retired and then Dan Hunt came in. He was the last coach for Colgate that brought a Patriot League title and FCS playoff appearance to Hamilton in 2018. And Sam DeCoste, a former quarterback and assistant coach at Colgate, he was the coach the last couple of years. And, they just kind of kept going downhill instead of an upward trajectory. And Kurt Fitzpatrick brings a lot of excitement, and I like what I've seen so far from Coach Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, Cortland, you mentioned the national championship a couple of years ago, but, man, they've had unbelievable success around here for the last decade or so. So that's a good, interesting hire at this point. And I guess the FCS level is so interesting, right, Eric, because you can have success there. You can make the playoffs. And you mentioned some of the other teams. When you look at all those teams up in the Dakotas, there's such a different strata when you get to the top level. Colgate was there, though. They were a playoff team. They've been in the mix, right? Like, there's got to be an appetite there to get back to that level.
Yeah, definitely. Here's the interesting thing. Since I've done play-by-play for Colgate for the past almost 25 years now, Brian, it was Coach Biddle. After him, Coach Hunt, which he was an assistant coach at Colgate, took over. Coach DeCoste, an assistant, took over. Fitzpatrick is the first coach with no real Colgate ties other than him attending Coach Biddle football camps when he was a young coach. And, coaches in the area, he was coaching for Morrisville State then, got to attend camps. But other than that, he has no real affiliation with Colgate. But the one nice thing is during his opening press conference, he continued to mention getting back to the physical style that was a staple of the Coach Biddle-led teams. And that was the glory days. I mean, they went all the way to the title game in 2003. So that's obviously what they're getting back. And I love that Coach Fitzpatrick looks back at those Coach Biddle teams and says, that's where we need to be. And the stress has been on physical and just resilient. And those were, if you looked at the Coach Biddle team during his run as the Colgate head man, those were his teams.
Yeah, that they were. Like when they made that run in 2003, it was just ramming the ball down everybody's throat every game, basically through the playoffs, getting to the title game that year. Eric, we can't let you go here without talking a little hoops before we let you go. Syracuse-Colgate this season hasn't been announced yet. I think we all presume it'll happen again as it does on an annual basis, which would bring Matt Langle and that always good squad back to the Dome again. It was a slightly down year, I guess you'd call it, for Colgate last year, and that they didn't win the Patriot League like they had been on a run. Are they poised to bounce back here this year with hoops? Not that it was a bad year last year, but man, Matt Langle's still in Hamilton, which I think continues to surprise us all with how great of a job he's done there.
Yeah, one of the assistants, Cameron Crocker, is now an assistant at Illinois. So one of the assistants moved on, but Matt is staying put in Hamilton. Yeah, I got to see how the roster shakes out. It's one of those things, like you said with Syracuse, you're constantly looking to see if there's defections or new players coming in. But the problem last year, Brian, was just that they were so used to being guard-oriented. And last year, the focus was Jeff Woodward, great player, but also they always had a two-headed monster down low. So Jeff, big guy, was expected to do it all, and that wasn't the real focal point of the Colgate success for the last several years. So we'll see. A run is going to come to an end at some point. You can't win the title every single year, but it'll be interesting to see how Colgate bounces back this year and deals with that adversity from a year ago. And I don't think there's a team in the Patriot League like Colgate was for several years that you look at them and say, oh, my, they're going to win the title for the next 5 years. So, I think if the young players continue to develop and we see if, how the roster shakes out, and I think Colgate will have a definite chance of this next year. As long as Matt Langel is there, I think they have a real good chance.
Yeah, that is a fact. As long as that dude is coaching games there, Colgate is going to be in the mix for sure in the Patriot League. All right, Eric, always great to chat some Raiders with you. Thanks for hopping on. As always, enjoy your summer, man, and I'm sure we'll talk again when we get to game week.
You too, Brian. Talk soon. Thank you. All
right, there he is, our guy Eric Malinowski, longtime play-by-play voice of the Colgate Raiders. We'll take a break. Little 411. We'll do that with Tim when we come back after this. It's Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.